Hello, and welcome to the video. I've been asked to explain a comment I made in a previous video where I mentioned that Ipswich has always attracted the ire of many a historian, which, to be honest with you, was just a throwaway line at the end of a video. Naturally, I assumed that every schoolchild in the country knew the reason why so many historians hated Ipswich. But for those of you who don't, here's the reason why. In truth, there are so many reasons that it's hard to name them all. But I'll start with the name, Ipswich. Surely you must have noticed what an unpleasant and unsettling word it is. Most other towns in England have lovely names like Gloucester or Amesbury or Buckingham. Not Ipswich. It doesn't even sound like a real word, and that's because it's not. The town of Ipswich was originally called Wisbicer, but in 732 the people of the town declared, and I'd like to preface this story by stating that the area around Wisbicer, or modern-day Ipswich as it is currently known, has the country's greatest abundance of psilocybin fungi, or magic mushrooms as they are more commonly known. And I'll let you take that into account as much as you deem necessary as the story itself unfolds. But as I was saying, in the year 732, the people of Ipswich declared that they had received divine revelation and that they had been sent here to judge us all. A year later, they walked back those claims a little, still maintaining they had received divine revelation, although now they insisted they had been sent to lead the way forward for the rest of the country. They started by rearranging the letters of their town from Wisbicer to Ipswich, and they took the E and the R and they simply threw them into the river. That irritated the cartographers. However, Ipswich was about to make its greatest enemy yet with its next bold and ill-advised initiative. The people of Ipswich declared that history didn't exist. There was no such thing, and that reality had only just started, right now. Furthermore, they said that there was no such thing as the future and that right here was as far as time would ever get. And so they started insisting that everybody get rid of their clocks and calendars. The people of the country ignored Ipswich. However, the townspeople went right ahead and got rid of all of their clocks and calendars, at which point the town of Ipswich fell into dramatic economic decline. Taking pity on them and wanting to help the people of Ipswich, one of England's first ever historians, the famous and much beloved Harold Pinterest, visited the town, taking with him scrolls and manuscripts and artifacts, intent on proving that history did indeed exist, and therefore, so did the future as well. The people of Ipswich listened to what Harold had to say, and then they sentenced him to the gallows, giving modern historians just the first of their reasons to dislike Ipswich. And if you have any understanding of the pathological psychology of historians, well, then you'll know what happened next. A long line of well-meaning historians all visited the town and received a similar fate. The next historian was a clergyman, the Reverend Barthibus Barthbus, who visited the town, convinced that Harold's fate must have been the result of some terrible misunderstanding or miscommunication for it to lead to such a catastrophic outcome. The people of Ipswich didn't even give him time to announce himself. They saw his books and instantly grabbed him and threw him down a well, piling his books up on top of him. The third historian to visit was the Marquis of Salisbury. The people beat him with sticks until he fled the town, vowing never to return again. A cunning deceit, because later on the Marquis disguised himself as a completely different historian and snuck back into the town, where he was captured and sentenced to the gallows. The fifth historian, counting the Marquis's disguise as the fourth, didn't do anything constructive at all. He just ran around the town square screaming, "The past is real, the past is real," and strangely, the people of Ipswich seemed to like this, and they let him carry on as much as he wanted, utterly unimpeded. The next three historians to visit the town met a rather grisly fate, the details of which I won't go into on this video for the purposes of good taste, but let's just say bear pit, snake pit, and human firework. And after that, historians vowed they would never send another historian to Ipswich ever again. But of course, they just couldn't help themselves. In 1146, the historian Sir Gilbert Talltoes visited Ipswich and they hung him. And that started a whole new wave of historians desperate to visit Ipswich and to convince them that history was in fact real. The cemeteries piled up high, and reports at the time suggest that the mortuary was completely filled up with historians. Horace Hogtooth of the Pig-Faced dynasty was considered one of the main repositories for historical knowledge at that time, and he was just passing by Ipswich when the people rushed out and grabbed him and turned him into a merry-go-round. In fact, with all of the historians that they sentenced to the gallows, it is believed that Ipswich on its own is responsible for holding back historical understanding in this country by as much as 200 years. And so that, of course, is the reason why nowadays modern historians take such a dim view of the town that should be called Wisbyson. Now, you may be thinking that I filmed this video here in Ipswich, but you're wrong. This isn't Ipswich. This is Stourbridge. And the reason is because I, as a historian, know far better than to go anywhere near Ipswich. So you made it to the end of the video. More fool you. But if you want more ridiculous nonsense like this, why not hit like and subscribe?